Yeah, it is Sunday, December 22nd, a little bit before 5 p.m. Central Time, the best time. You know what that means? It's time for First Call. My name is Victor Jones, but you're not here for me. You're here for the one, the only, the founder, Mr. Thomas Sosnoff. Tom, how you doing, my friend?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good.
Are you an elf on the shelf kind of guy? I'm
No,
guessing not.
I
I knew
missed that.
I knew the answer to that as I
I
asked.
missed that. I missed that era. That wasn't my era, unfortunately.
Were
Uh,
you like were you one of those smooth operators at the holiday parties who would catch your wife under the mistletoe and say, "Guess what? Guess what?" and then point up and then go in for the smooth kiss? Was that you?
why would my wife be at our holiday party? I mean, we had a rule. Nobody broke that rule. You know, there's no wives or significant others ever at a holiday party. It's just a recipe for disaster.
My wife my wife had these bells and on top of it was mistletoe. Somebody gave her like an ornament. And she hung it up to me. She goes, "We should put this on the tree." And I go, "You know what that is, don't you?" She goes, "What?" And I realized, oh, she doesn't know. Like, this
Yeah,
isn't really her thing. She's Buddhist, you know?
yeah.
And I thought about it and I go, you know what? Never mind. Don't worry about it.
You can get away with anything with a Buddhist.
That should be a t-shirt. Tom, what'd you do this weekend, man? Did you have fun?
Um, you know what? I kind of putzed around. I thought I was going to be really busy Christmas shopping, but I kind of I kind of failed. Like I had too much time,
Uh-huh.
so I shopped around, bought a lot of Christmas foods, but I didn't buy any. I didn't do really good Christmas shopping, so I was
I
kind
could
of like,
totally see you doing that. Going out to
yeah,
buy presents for others, and all you bought was like a bunch of meat for yourself.
it's exactly what I did. It's exactly what I did. Like I logged way too many hours watching football and buying meats, and I didn't really do a good job Christmas shopping.
That's too
But
funny. You
it
know,
was a relaxing weekend. Yeah, I really didn't. It was night. It was cold in Chicago, but but it was clear and sunny, and so, I was pretty much out all weekend.
oh, well, it's great to see you, Tom. You're in holiday spirits. You got a smile ear to ear. I'm not sure what that means about risk. Normally, when you got a smile ear to ear, I'm not sure how to think about markets, but let's get to it.
My
Santa Claus.
risk is down a little bit from like a week ago, I would say.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
They said F you and your Santa Claus rally last week, and I had no problems with it, down 3 or 4% in a single day. But they rallied them. I think end of the week, something like this. We're at just under 6,000. The S&P 500 holiday week coming up. Mr. Thomas Sosnoff post quad witching. What say you about risk going into this week?
it's funny. They closed them. I know they rallied 103% off the lows on Friday morning, which obviously caught everybody by surprise. That was incredible rally off the lows. We haven't seen anything like that in a long time. But the end of the day, they sold them off a full percent, like 60 handles, and that really did surprise me. The end of the day sell off. So I think they used a lot of their bullets on that 3% rally on Friday. I don't
You
think
think
they got
so?
too much left early this week, but we'll see.
Um, they took it out of everything here. Nasdaq, Dow, Grandpa's favorite index is trading sub 44,000 and 2267 in the Russell. I haven't asked you about the Nasdaq Russell or the S&P Russell pair in a while. The
I
Russell
have it
took in the
on.
teeth just like everything else. What do you think about the pair?
I
And
have it
why do you
on.
still like it? Why do
I
you
don't.
still like it?
It's not that I like it. It's just that I have it on. Don't you ever put positions on where you don't like what you have on, but you have it on?
Long bonds, that's mine right now.
Yeah. Okay. So long bonds. I mean, they traded up to 115, close to 114 and a half. I mean, I typically have positions on where I don't love them, but I have them on. And the Russell S, I don't have Russell Nasdaq. I have Russell S and P's. And yeah, I don't love it. I got to tell you the truth. I don't love it.
I'm the same way with this long bond trade. Every part of me believes that we're going to go touch 5% in the 10-year next year. But I didn't think we'd go straight there. And I get that we got a little rally from 116 to 120. I just didn't think it was going to be over. You kind of perfectly timed this. I think at 114 they're a decent deal, but we're only at 4.6 in yields. I could easily see us going to 5%. Tom, you had last Sunday you had closed out, I think, your long bonds. How are you thinking about bonds going into this week? Did you start
I
adding
did
some new
close them
long
out.
deltas?
Oh yeah, yeah. I reloaded totally. Um, I sold a little bit on Friday, but I totally reloaded. I'm locked and loaded in bonds and notes. So
Mhm.
I need notes back up over 110. I need bonds up back over 116. But that's probably my average is around 116. They're 114 and a half,
Yeah,
114.18.
they just
Um,
opened up, Tom.
yeah, bonds opened up two, notes opened up two ticks too, but the Nasdaq opened up 80, and the S&Ps they only opened up six, but they're up 16 right now. The S&Ps, like I said, they sold off 60 handles on the close,
Mhm.
and they you know came right back. I don't think they're going anywhere this week. I thought that was an unbelievable rally off the lows on Friday morning, but I think they kind of blew their brains out. So maybe they get back up to the highs from Friday, but I don't think they're going anywhere.
Mm. And I lost count. This is maybe the fourth or fifth row where the big mover Sunday night is Natty Gas up 4%.
Yeah, but it's not, it doesn't matter because it's almost, I mean, I have positions on in there and I trade it every Sunday night. It seems to by Monday morning come all the way back down to being, only up a couple pennies. So I'm not adjusting anymore on Sunday nights. But I don't think I don't think anybody has a big position on a natty gas. I think at this point, I don't think people have big positions on in crude oil. I don't think people have big positions on natural gas. I'm even going to go so far as to say gold and silver are relatively small. I think I think
You
there
think
are people with bond positions and there are people with plenty big enough stock. There's no reason to trade all these basically one-dimensional commodities when you have stock market moving around 2 or 3% a day. I mean, there's 1,000 more opportunities and volatilities, opportunities, upside, downside plays in the stock market than there are in these individual, commodities. So they're pretty much next to irrelevant.
I would say that's true. From a trading standpoint, there's low volatility in not only the commodities, but I just showed you all the commodity tracking equities,
Yeah,
ETF, FCX, Newmont,
yeah, they're all in the
XLE,
butts.
all the energies down.
Yeah,
But I think if you don't trade Momo, if you don't trade momentum, then these start to look interesting. Start to look like a value relative to the rest of the market. So
yeah.
I
I
would
mean,
agree with you.
yeah.
Falls low in these, but they're cheap. They're starting to get
If
cheap.
you're a contrarian and you need long deltas, all of these are cheap relative.
Agreed.
So if you're a contrarian and you need long deltas, yeah, there's a bunch of things out there that have some long deltas. But I mean, you got to remember with the turnaround we saw on Friday and the three moves of over 1% intraday on Friday on a triple witching day, which is really rare for triple witching because triple witching is usually this monster volume, heavy, churn both ways. Extremely rare to have that kind of activity on a Friday of triple witching, and we had it. So that means everything's in play this week. And for people that say, "Oh, it's going to be quiet because nobody's around," you don't need anybody to be around anymore. It doesn't like you don't have to be on Wall Street. You don't have to be down at the exchange. You can trade from anywhere. Everything is automated, and all the market making systems are going to be on full blast.
Mm. I would say Christmas came early for the contrarian tasty trader. You got a market that was down, depending on which major you're talking about, 3 to 4%. A lot of the concentrated equities were down more than that, and you had a spike in vol to like 27, and it immediately murdered it back into 18. So it was like, could there have been a better week for contrarian tasty traders than last week?
Well, I wouldn't say that it saved it. Here's the thing: it definitely um, it definitely made for a nice Christmas present. I wouldn't say that it saved everything, to do with that crazy rally up to,
Yeah.
6,100 and change or wherever we got up to. But I will say that it saved Christmas in the sense that it was really good for a lot of contrarians. You got an opportunity to take some money off the table.
Yeah, I would agree. Even Tesla, Tom, which you know, you don't want to get on with the Elon train. I'm over
Tesla,
here.
Tesla had
I
a
want this guy to be Speaker of the House. You
sure you
don't
do.
want
Of
his
course you
stock
do.
to get to, you don't want his stock to get to 500. It
Um,
rolled over as well, 3.5% on Friday, off the high significantly.
yeah, the stock
Was this
traded.
day one, week one last week?
Yeah, stock traded 480, almost 485, down to like 415. It dropped like $70 this last week from high to low, but it's down $60 kind of on for the week. I would say that Tesla has, to me, probably Tesla has the risk with the greatest single point of failure of any stock.
Hmm.
I mean, of just about any stock. I mean, especially any stock priced at over $400 or anywhere like with the market cap of what it has. I feel like Tesla is, it has a single point of failure. And just based on what you just said, I'm going to strongly suggest you don't read my cherry bomb for tonight.
I, I bet I can guess a phrase that's in it. Can I guess?
Sure.
President Musk.
Nope.
Oh.
Too public, man. I'm not public.
Yeah, they're trying to sow the seeds of division. Anyone that's saying that's designed for an audience of one. That's designed for the president-elect to try to sow some division within that group.
I don't agree. I think it's just kind of fun and it sounds good, but the reality is that listen, you can paint it, slice it, you can put as much lipstick on the pig as you want, but the reality in the end, this relationship has zero chance of survival. Zero.
Okay,
And
for everyone out there, I just want you to know I'm entering my 6th year of marriage, and Tom, when I told Tom I was getting married, he looked at me. He didn't say congratulations. He didn't say any of that. He goes, 18 months. He gave me his over under.
I mean,
and you were
wrong. With all due
by
respect,
years.
with all due respect, if you had put you and Dylan Radigan side by side, I would have taken Dylan over you. So your wife must be a saint, a
Oh,
goddess.
there's a special place for her in heaven. I can tell you that much.
There is, because there's not going to be a special place for you, that's for sure. So she, whatever she deserves something. But
There's going to be one moment, just 1 second, when I get there and I look around. I go, I knew it. Yeah, this makes sense.
no, I have yeah, I basically wrote, listen, you know, Elon can be stopped. Trump can't be, because Trump, we've already,
Oh,
they've tried to
no.
kill him.
You need to see somebody. You need to
No,
see.
no,
I
no,
don't know
no,
if
no.
there's
My point is,
there's like a
he
person.
survives. Trump survives no matter what. Doesn't matter what happens. He
Oh, yeah.
survives everything. Doesn't make any difference. He survives everything. So he's not at risk because you cannot hurt that guy. Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Elon doesn't have a chance.
Oh, give me a break.
Oh,
You probably
God,
you're one of those guys that says he needed to sell Twitter at when Tesla was 175 because all the distractions and everything, and now it paid
No,
off huge for the
actually,
shareholders.
actually, I don't care because Twitter's his and he paid for it, so I could care less. The funniest thing about Twitter is that it's going to turn out in the long run as one of the worst investments ever,
What are
one of the
you
worst trades. But he somehow backed in to about a multi-hundred-billion-dollar
Yes.
win
Okay.
for
Okay, that's fair.
all the wrong reasons that you could have never predicted, when he bought Twitter. So it goes to my point, and we don't have to go that deep on this, but it goes to my point that whenever you have an opportunity to buy something, just buy it.
Just do the deal.
It's
That's what
called
you've always
positive
said.
drift. You just have to buy. People are afraid to make deals. They're afraid to do things. And every time you have a chance to do something, just freaking do it.
Yeah. I learned that lesson too late. Nvidia 134.70 up $4 or 3% on Friday's close, but still, is there a number? Is there a number that makes Nvidia cheap to you? Because I know you're not a valuation guy, so like a price at Nvidia 120. Does Tom start going long delta?
No, maybe like 80.
Really?
Yeah.
There's some pain in the world for Nvidia to get to 80. No.
Well, I mean, it's definitely can get back under 100. If the wind blows, it can get under 100. So no, 120 doesn't do anything for me. You're at 60. You're at 6,000. If the S&Ps go to 5,000, Nvidia's trading 102.
I'm with you. I'm just saying when we had that like August 5th craziness, that yen carry unwind, quote unquote, that was only enough to get us to like 95 or something like that. So to get to 88, you got to have a pretty big event. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not saying.
Well, let it get back into the 90s, and then we'll see what happens.
All right, my friend. What do you say we keep the show tight tonight? Yeah. And welcome to First Call, our good friend Pete Momet. Pete, welcome to First Call.
Gentlemen, thanks so much. Good to see you both. Victor, you're all squared away? Hey, Tom, you're also okay. So you did a lot of food shopping, which is critical. Not so much the present shopping. What about you, Vic? You seem like you're a very organized guy. So I got to imagine you got it knocked out.
In between.
With some support from the team. Yeah.
The kids are taken care of.
No chance. Victor's a babysitter. He's not a food buyer. I can tell you, he does not shop. He will take the kids, but he will not go shopping.
Wrong. The kids are squared away, but the wife, I gotta make a last minute scramble on that one.
I'm with you too. I'm figuring I got 2 whole days left. That's a lot of time. So
that's a lot of time.
I know, a lot of time.
Pete, speaking of Christmas shopping, they got cheap last week. Was there anything that was interesting enough for you to go buy in this market, or have they not done enough damage for Pete to pull out a shopping list and go buy equities yet?
I'm keeping my cart relatively parked at the moment. I mean, you look at things like Apple, Costco, Microsoft, the things that have continued to outperform. Yeah, they knocked everything hard Wednesday, and I don't think it was the Fed announcement. What did they do?
Agreed.
They cut by 25 basis points, and they said they may raise twice next year. That's exactly what the market has been saying for a month.
Agreed.
No earth-shattering news. So did they shake it out a little hard? I was a little surprised by the strength of the rally Friday. I thought that was an awful lot.
Can we get a little credit from Victor Jones for the last 5 years of just saying that the market sets rates, not the Fed?
Okay.
After listening to everybody always talk about the Fed, and I sit here and go, you know what? The only thing that matters is what the market says. And in the end, the only thing that matters is what the market says.
But when they rose rates from 01. All right, fair.
Let's give him this one.
Okay.
Let's give it. Tom, you're spot on. As
Thank
always.
you, Pete.
You got this one pinned. You got this one pinned, man. Now you're long, but it's funny. You're long the long end. I'm long the short end, and mine worked really well. I layered in. I bought 2s. I sold 10s. I bought CTs. Sold ZNs. You do them 2 for 1. It's kind of looking for that steepening. Work like a charm Thursday. Friday was a little bit tough. So I know you're playing kind of that range 114, 115 up to 120 in bonds. It actually seems to be working a little bit better. We're on the lower end of that range right now, but it seems to be working a little bit better than just trying to get a little too clever with some of these yield curve trades. I don't know if the interest is there right now. I thought maybe we were going to build on that post-Fed. We're going to see that steepness come back in a little bit, but it took one. What did we have? ECI number or whatever on Friday to kind of shake that loose a little bit. So I still am in it. I still like that trade. It takes out some of the whippiness of just being long or short bonds or notes. But I don't know. We'll have to see. This 2-year trade has to start to work in the next couple of days. Otherwise, it may not be. Maybe that curve doesn't steepen, and we just get a range trade here.
Let me ask you kind of I was going to say fun question. I realized, bro, you need to get out more if this is a fun question. Yeah, but right. I'm going to ask you both. I think I've already asked you this, Tom, but just so we get you both together. I think coming into 2024, the market expectation either just before or just after the year began was like 6 or 7 cuts, and we didn't come close. Now the market seems to have, in my personal opinion, over-rotated the other way. The Fed said 2 cuts, but the market is actually between 1 and 2, where we ended last week. So then my question is, Pete, over under, where do you think we actually end up in 2025? Do you think we have less cuts than the market is priced, more cuts, or do you think we're perfectly priced? Is it a push?
I don't, that's tough because I read 3 chuckleheads over the weekend all talking about, the next thing may be a hike. And when everybody gets that way and they take out all the cuts, like you, I like to fade even that part of it. So I think it'll be measured. If, we could, granted, we saw a lot of rotation out of some of the names that never put in on the stock side. Remember, the strongest candidates definitely gave a lot of ground. You talked about it. Dow was down 10 straight days. I think that was a record for it before we got a meager bounce Friday. What did we close up, 11 or something? Statistically, 10 straight down days, I think, was a record.
The Dow was up. The Dow was up on Thursday, Pete. Just small, but it was up on Thursday.
Right. So, Victor, when you say I look at things like Palantir, I'm looking for levels to play the other side. It's the pace, though, of it not being willing to give ground, the pace of Apple not being willing to give ground, doesn't make me want to buy 2 or 3% pullback, but makes me mindful of maybe we got to get through the start of the year before I can actually sell them. I don't know. Or if I start really small, because the tape action is still telling you people are out there buying incredibly shallow dips after huge runs up. So I don't know. I am really light on stocks, both from a future standpoint and from a single name standpoint, because I can't level set some of the disconnect in value. If you try to chase the pigs, they do nothing for you. So trying to play catch up is difficult right now. So you got to focus on what's moving, and it's all one directional, even at the top. That makes it tough for me.
I'll tell you what. Palantir is not a pig, my friend. You said if you
no. I'm not saying it is.
Hold on.
No.
Palantir,
not at all.
Palantir, strong like bull. Don't try to stand in front of this bad boy. Maybe they discount it if, like, when the market starts to price that we're going the other way in Ukraine, or they were settling down in Iran and like the Middle East wars. Maybe on settlement of geopolitical tensions, this thing discounts. I'm not standing in the way of it early.
No, it doesn't.
What about you, Tom?
I'm talking about things like, do you want to look at autos? Do you want to look at some of the staples, some of the other things that it gave more ground on Wednesday, didn't bounce as much on Thursday? And do they look interesting? That might be the only place I go, but going into the end of the year, it seems like the usual names are leading this and continue to push.
Good God, I just saw Ford down to a $9 stock.
Yeah, again.
Palantir, Vic, if on a short-term basis, Palantir, probably one of the top 10 shorts out there. Longer term, I'll give it to you. Long term, I have no idea, but short term, one of the most overpriced stocks in the world.
I would rather bet against Tesla than Palantir right now.
Well, Tesla's a way easier bet. Tesla, and I mean, you can start with Tesla and MicroStrategy as the 2 most overpriced stocks, but Palantir's up there.
I think the money's to be made to the upside in Palantir, even if you got a 25% break.
100%. I agree with you. The money's to be made. The upside is going to be the downside is going to be like pulling teeth. It's going to be painful because it's going to happen in like 3 days. The stock will drop 20. It's always more painful in stocks like that to the downside. Just like GME, it was freaking impossible to the downside. Even though any kind of stock like that, I consider Palantir a little bit of a meme stock. I thought it when it was 20 and 25 and 30 and wherever it is now, set what is it, 80 or something? At 80, it's just an overpriced meme stock. But whatever. I don't know what position on there.
Dollar actually had some sellers, both. We had a run up on Wednesday, decent selling on Thursday, Friday. We're a little bit off the lows here, back above 104 in euro in spot terms.
I don't think anybody cares, Pete.
Kiwi and Aussie.
I think the challenge for the dollar is to get people interested. Here's my take on the dollar. You're going to have to sit with those positions being short dollar for another till January 20th, until after the new administration comes in.
Okay.
And that's when the dollar comes back into play. But from now until Jan 20th, nothing is going to be absolutely dead. There might be
Yeah.
some jockeying for position like a week before or something, but you're looking at one dead market. They can't find a buyer,
No.
and you got to be long it. It's just a question from where. I mean, I think from here, but I mean, I'm sorry, you got to be long anything but the dollar. You got to be short dollars, long anything. That's just my take. But I don't think anything happens till the middle of Jan.
Right. Okay.
Last question for both of you then. I asked you both, or excuse me, I asked you, Tom, on Thursday whether you thought they were going to do it. They were going to find their way to a deal on the government shutdown, and at the literal 11th hour, they did.
Oh my God!
I was going to wait till Tom.
I was going to wait till Tuesday to yell at you and Vanetta and all the idiocy around that. For the last 20 years, or I shouldn't say 20 years, for the last 14 years of Tasty, we have had to listen to every yin yang, media talking head, just idiotic discussion about the government reaching, about the government shutting down. And every single time, no matter what, of course, they reach an agreement at the last hour, because just like anybody else would about paying themselves, every single time, it's all posturing. It's just a poker game. Every single time they do. I wish they never, ever would cover this again, because it's not worth talking about ever. And anybody that talks about it in the sense that they're not going to reach a deal, it's just, they shouldn't be in this space.
I think it's the wrong angle. Not your take. I think it's the angle on the story is the wrong angle, because what it allow it's basically we did a deal, we solved the problem we created, but nobody goes into, all right, well, what was in that? What were in the 1,500 pages? Obviously, the meat for everyone to get mad at and for them to kill was the giving themselves a raise. Clearly, that's the dangling keys for us all to get mad at. And they go, okay, we killed it. And we did a deal. It was like, none of us get mad that they would try to put 1,500 pages in front of our elected representatives with less than 24 hours to read and vote it. And there's no way humanly possible these people are actually sitting down and reading this and doing this with a day. And they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it on purpose. And I think nobody wants to talk about that angle on the story. Why the hell do they keep doing this on purpose with 24 hours to go? But instead, we're like, oh, yes, the government didn't shut down. Like that actually matters. Nobody cares what they agreed on to get past the government shutdown.
Victor, it's been going on this way for 100 years. Nobody cares. Nobody ever cares.
Years.
Whatever.
Since they stopped passing a budget and they start doing this continuing resolution bullshit.
Okay, whatever. But it's been, nobody cares. Nobody ever cared.
I care.
It's just, you're the only one. You're the only one who read 1,500 pages.
All right, Pete, we'll let you off this.
No, I'll meet you halfway in between. Back. FCX would be the last one I'd take a look at if you were looking for something cheap in the commodity space, all the way back down. Copper around 410. Not particularly interesting. Did not get the same. FXI is holding in there pretty well. China is, again, we're not on a tear, but we're holding in. When I look at stuff that I think is cheap, it's stuff like this that might be a little bit interesting right now.
Thanks, Pete. Can you throw in Newmont Mining in there too?
Yes, same thing.
God.
Yes.
Yes. All
Can
right,
you
Pete,
two
take it
geniuses
easy.
throw in homestake mining? I think that's still around.
And American Barrick, of course. All right,
Of
guys,
course.
have a great night. I'll talk to you
See you,
later.
Pete. Happy holidays. Ilya Spivak, welcome, my friend, to First Call.
Gentlemen, how goes
Save us, Ilya.
Happy
No,
Festivus, Ilya.
nobody cares about the debt ceiling. Vic, you and I talked about this on The Price of Truth on Wednesday, and I think my answer was about the same as Tom's, which is, yes, we have a long-term conversation to have, but near-term, these things don't really move the needle.
That doesn't surprise me at all. You two are both liberal elites. So you have similar takes on these types of things, which is I don't care what they write down. Just keep paying me my money.
For an immigrant like me to have made it to liberal elite is a giant win.
What are you thinking about risk this week, Ilya? What do you think about the
take that as a
sell-off
badge
budget?
of honor.
Let me ask this a different way, because
I think that's the nicest thing anybody ever said about me, that I'm a liberal elite. That's the nicest thing.
Ilya, what did you think about the FOMC announcement? Obviously, the cut wasn't a surprise, but they also put out what's called a summary of economic projection, or the dot plot. Anything in there that was particularly noteworthy to you?
Absolutely. So I think when you look at what the Fed has been doing for basically the past 6 months really clearly, and 9 months if you look closely. Again, I'm gonna promo back to our price of truth conversation on Wednesday, and bring back the analogy. It looks like judo. It looks like what the Fed is doing is it's taking the market's speculative momentum and using that to throw the markets off balance, much like a judo move where somebody is going to attack you or push you hard, and instead of countering, you lean in. So the markets wanted the Fed to be really dovish in September. They were baking out all these cuts, and the Fed came in September and said, okay, here. And the markets stumbled and didn't know what to do with it. And for 2 months, bonds rallied, the dollar yields rallied, bonds sold off, the dollar rallied. And that's when the market got exactly what they had baked in when the Fed delivered that dovish message. All the Fed did was basically endorse the 2 years move. And nevertheless, the market had, wait, really? We get exactly that? And for 2 months, they readjusted. They came into this update looking real hawkish, and the Fed gave them that. And they said, wait, really? And they freaked out again. So the Fed is tossing the markets around here by essentially killing them with kindness. And I agree with what you said earlier. I think the market is, again, and I think the Fed understands this, talked themselves into more of a speculative fervor on the hawkish side than is reasonable, because the economic data has already started to cool off again, much like when the Fed gave them everything they wanted in September. It was starting to heat up, which is why the market looked at the dovish Fed and said, oh, they went our way and the data is heating up. Reflation, lift up yields, lift up dollar. They're off sides. They'll never do 4 cuts next year. Now the market's at 1.5, the Fed's at 2, market's probably overdone. So yields are at this point probably too high, dollar's too strong. Both of those things are probably looking like they're going to correct the other way.
Yeah, the tough question is always when. So given that backdrop for FOMC and the nice little sell-off we got at the mid part of last week, what do you think about risk going into a holiday week?
So I thought the dynamics of what happened with the equity sell-off last week and then the bounce on Friday were really interesting, because on Friday, they really tried to have more than just a correction, and very pointedly by midday started to fail. And if you look at, let's say, like a 4-hour chart of S&P, of NASDAQ, of anything, you very clearly see the initial sell-off, the first bounce off whatever that exhaustion low is initially, and then on Friday, the market failing to close above the high of that initial bounce, and ultimately holding range bound in ES, in Russell, in NASDAQ, every single one of them. After the Wednesday sell-off, there's the low, the bounce, and then you can't close above the high of that bounce for the rest of the week. They try to build momentum on Friday. They couldn't do it. So this is going to be really interesting now. I think this is a week where there's no real event risk. There's obviously a ton of closures. So this would be the environment. If you were a disgruntled bull that wanted to have thin liquidity to make your high watermark look a little bit better, to take a better snapshot of your P&L before the end of the year, to market next year before tax loss harvesting, such that it could be next year after a year that we've just had, you would try to run it up this week. There's not a lot of resistance. There's not a lot of sellers. Markets are thin. You try to run it up. And if you can't this week, it might be something like reading the tea leaves for a dicey start to January. But we'll see. For me, I'm short. So I'm short SPY off the highs. I've been short Russell for like 2.5 weeks now. So far, that's fine. I'm looking for a place to get short NASDAQ with a put vertical as well. And I'm just looking for where the bounce is going to exhaust to see if there's some continuation that we get on Monday going into Tuesday or not. But I'm looking to be a seller at this point.
Well, I'm going to ask you guys instrument by instrument with the last 5 minutes, how you guys are leaning in your positions or your opinions going into the week. But you brought up judo. Tom, speaking of martial arts in some capacity, my son, do you know Weili Zhang is the Chinese UFC strawweight champion?
Absolutely
beast.
not. No. People have asked me if I know a lot of people, but Weili Zhang, no.
Weili Zhang. I bet you would. You watch a lot of the UFC fights. You'd probably know her if I showed you a picture. Anyway, she's her striking coach, a guy named Crew John, and he worked out with my son this week, and
that's cool.
Turned him into an absolute monster. He's been like shadow boxing for the last 36 hours. He's a
good thing he's been shadow boxing. My son likes to punch me.
Yeah. So then he learned how to do two things this week. One, he shadow boxed with this UFC champion striking coach, and his BJJ teacher taught him how to do an arm bar. I'm in trouble. He's not 5 years old, Tom. I'm not able to lay down the law in the house anymore. He looked at me yesterday and he goes, "I'm the captain now." All right, Tom, S&P 500, a little over 6,000. How are you thinking about risk in all the major equities, starting with the S&P?
I think the S&P used a lot of its used an incredible amount of energy off the lows on Friday to rally back, 180 points off the lows. I think that's a little bit much, more than it was capable of. Sold off 60 on the close. If it rallies back up towards that 60.5 number, I don't like them at all. I think there's a lot of downside this week, and I don't know that there's that. I don't know, like Ilya said, it's going to be a little bit thinner, but it's not that there'll be bad markets, because there won't be. There'll be great markets. The whole thing with this week is I think you can bully the market a little bit. I think there's I'm going to continue to say there's more risk to the downside, because the pot odds still favor the downside, just because we're so rich. And I think that the stock market eventually will follow the bond market lower. I think the bond market's got a lot of upside. I think the stock market's got a lot of downside. Those are both pot odds calls, not really, nothing macro about it. That's all.
So basically, that 60-50 number was the high from Friday. So you're saying if they get near the highs from Friday, you're going to start leaning in against them. Ilya, same question to you, and I'm more interested what you do with your Russell short. You've been leaning short Russell for the last couple of weeks. It's worked. What are you going to do with it going into this week?
So it's getting interesting. I may need to take it off and reload, just because I'm starting to approach DTE. So I need to start thinking about whether I want to kind of push that line or not. I have about 17 days left, so I have to think about that. But I like it here as long as it basically can't get back up over those lows from November. That's essentially my line in the sand. That, to my mind, is former support come resistance right there. If we're underneath that area, I'm happy being short. It's not surprising that it's bouncing off the sort of 2,200 or so range bottom. It's bounced off there a bunch before, but I may need to just extend it out, like take it off, wait a little bit, and go again.
Volatility, Tom. Just a week or so ago, we were talking about vol and a 13 handle, which had to make it hard for some of the vol sellers. Now at 1830, at least you're slightly above long-term averages in vol. What do you say to all the volatility sellers about vol going into this week?
You have to be. I don't think vol's going anywhere this week, even on a down move. I don't think it's going anywhere. So I think you got, we're short vol. We're always short vol. But we're short vol this week for sure.
All right, we'll do one more. Let's do like the your thoughts on the dollar, and then we'll end it on Bitcoin. So your thoughts on the dollar here, guys. Starting with you, Tom.
I'm super bearish across the board. Doesn't matter what the underlying is.
You're price insensitive with that too, which means you're playing a dollar crash.
Yeah, I'm playing a dollar crash.
Yeah. Ilya, your thoughts?
I am not playing a dollar crash, but I am short dollars here. I think with yields being overcooked on the upside, there is basically a correlated one-way bet that extrapolates out from that to be long bonds, short dollars, and long gold. I think all of that basically is the same idea, that yields have gone further than is reasonable. And so I think that's sort of how I think about it. I'm long the euro. I am not going to touch the Canadian dollar or the Aussie here. They seem to have a very hard time capitalizing on dollar weakness, even when it occurs against things like yen and euro and pound. I'm probably going to get long the pound as well once the opportunity arises, because I think the Bank of England was much more dovish than people expected, and it got rocked, but it did not even take out its previous low. So that's telling me the pound doesn't want to sell off even on a dovish local central bank, which is a thing. So I'm looking at that and saying maybe there's a bottom here. I just need a little bit more upside follow, and then I'm in that as well. But I'm staying away from commodity currencies because for some maybe China-related reason, maybe something else, who knows, they're having a really hard time.
All right, then the last one's going to be Bitcoin. The one thing I'll say about yields is that it's easy to look at bonds, and it's easy to look at the yield and say, okay, we're at 4 or 5. But really, real yields on the 10-year have been between 1.5 and 2 since July of 2022. We've been in this range. So while nominal yields have been drifting higher, real yields have been in this band between 1.5 and 2% since July of 2022. And I would just like to,
which is why Fed policy is so important, because a lot of what's going on you can see in the break-even rates, because a lot of what's moving nominal yields is inflation expectations, and inflation expectations are a window onto the Fed, and the Fed is doing this dance with markets. Markets are telling the Fed what to do, but the Fed is using that information to beam back at markets in a reflexive way. And so there's this dance between what the policy makers are saying and doing, how the markets react, and then vice versa. So it's an interesting thing here, and it's all around what the economic data is telling you about inflation expectations. And if you take those out, real yields aren't really going very far at all.
Bingo. So the most interesting thing about that summary of economics of projections that I think didn't really do anything except confirm where the market was. The most interesting part was the inflation expectation for 2025 was juiced all the way up to 2.5. And so if you believe that, then yields make sense at 4.6. But if you don't think inflation is going to get back up to 2.5%, then there, to Tom's point, could be a huge opportunity here to be long bonds. But
the PCE numbers kind of
I guess the flip side is they could have underestimated growth. So I don't know. Sorry. Sorry to nerd out there.
The PCE numbers kind
Tom,
of said that.
Hold on. I got to get out of here. Tom, Bitcoin at 95,000 plus all the associated instruments like Coinbase and MicroStrategy, all that stuff took a little bit of a hit. Did they do enough damage here for Tom Sosnoff to start getting bulled up?
Oh my God, not even close. I mean, they did some damage in ETH, down about 20% last week from the highs. Bitcoin only down about 10. Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin has a lot of single points of failure, much like Tesla, much like the NASDAQ. I think Bitcoin, you can make 10,000 to the upside, maybe back to highs, and you got 20,000 of risk, go easily to 75. I don't like Bitcoin here. I like ETH under 3,000 or 2,800. I don't like Bitcoin anywhere until it gets in the low 70s.
So that means all these instruments, if your world comes to pass, are going to be under pressure for a while.
To buy the rumor, sell the news. They benefited most from the Trump bump, and they're gonna suffer the most from reality setting in.
Fair enough. I would ask you, Ilya, what you think of Bitcoin, but you're a hater, so I'm not going to give you the microphone. I'm not going to let you spread that hate.
I am forever and always a skeptic.
Straight hate. Ilya Spivak, I hope you and your family have a great holiday. Same as you, Tom. But I think I'll talk to you next week. For Ilya Spivak, for Pete Momet, I've been Victor Jones, for the founder, the creator, Tom Sosnoff, and for everybody here at Tasty Live. Have a happy holidays. Everybody out there, do us a favor. If you're feeling some holiday cheer, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, we'll see you tomorrow bright and early, only on Tasty Live. Peace.